Did you not know?
Did you not know?
Have you not heard?
Have you not heard?
Were you not told?
Were you not told?
That the Lord is good.
He is good.
Did you not know?
Did you not know?
Have you not heard?
Have you not heard?
Were you not told?
Were you not told?
That the Lord is good.
He is good.
Today I want to look at winning through suffering and looking at resurrection and a new heaven and a new earth. Problems that I wrestle with are, how did Jesus bring God's kingdom to earth? He said, the kingdom of God is here. And how is it here? How has Jesus conquered sin? It still seems to be here in abundance. Revelations is a complex book, and certainly the bit at the end about end times, it's divided scholars, and lots of people don't agree on different interpretations. All agree and explain the hope that Christians will go to heaven and be with God. At Easter we sing the line, made like him we rise. Ewan and I once went to a church and there was a pastor who was a great Bible teacher, and he'd been to Spurgeon's College, and he did very good expository preaching, really interesting. But one Sunday he was explaining the book of Revelations and about the new heaven and the new earth. And his interpretation was that there was no sun, no sea, or marriage. So that all sounded a bit miserable to me. So being me, my reply when shaking his hands at the end of the service was about looking forward to meeting him in heaven, and I'd be holding Ewan's hand and walking along the beach. He did have a sense of humour. I don't think we're meant to interpret this so literally. And the Bible Project has a simple explanation that I find really helpful, talking about God's space and our space. And I want you to listen to it now, and I hope you find it helpful.
So in the Bible, the ideas of heaven and earth are ways of talking about God's space and our space.
So I understand our space really well. We live here. There's trees, rivers, mountains. But my understanding of God's space gets a little fuzzy.
And what we do get in the Bible are images trying to help us grasp God's space, which is basically inconceivable to us.
So these are two very different types of spaces.
Yes, they're different in their nature, but here's what's really interesting is that in the Bible, these are not always separate spaces. So think of heaven and earth as like different dimensions that can overlap in the same exact space.
So we talk a lot about going to heaven after we die, but this idea of heaven and earth overlapping, we don't talk a lot about that.
Which is kind of crazy because the union of heaven and earth is what the story of the Bible is all about. How they were once fully united and then driven apart, and about how God is bringing them back together once again.
So let's go back to the beginning, where heaven and earth, they're completely overlapping.
Yeah, this is what the Bible's description of the Garden of Eden is all about. It's a place where God and humanity dwelt together perfectly, no separation, and humans then partner with God in building a flourishing, beautiful world and so on.
But as humans, we wanted to do things a different way. We wanted God out, and we wanted to create a world apart from him.
Yeah, so we have these two spaces now. And the Bible actually uses lots of different kinds of words and phrases to refer to these two spaces to make a clear distinction.
So you've said that these spaces can overlap, though. So explain how that works.
Yeah, this is where we have to start talking about temples. Because in the biblical world, you experience God's presence by going to a temple. That's where heaven and earth overlap.
Now, there are two types of temples described in the Bible. One is a tabernacle, basically a tent that was built by Moses. And the other was this massive building made by Solomon.
And these temples were decorated with fruit trees and flowers and images of angels and all kinds of gold and jewels and so on. And these are designed to make you feel like you're going back to the garden. And at the center of the temple was a place called the Holy of Holies, which was like the hot spot of God's presence.
Now we can go and be with God again.
But not so fast, because the temple also creates a problem. So God's space is full of his presence and goodness and justice and beauty, but human space is full of sin and injustice and the ugliness that results.
So how do these spaces overlap if they're so different and they're in conflict with each other?
This was resolved through animal sacrifice.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. What do animal sacrifices have to do with this?
Yeah, the idea is this. Animal sacrifices, somehow they absorb the sin when the animal dies in your place. And it creates a clean space, so to speak, where you are now free to enter into the temple and be in God's presence.
Okay, so if I'm an Israelite and I live in Jerusalem, I might be able to be in God's presence. But you said the story of the Bible is all of heaven and earth reuniting.
Right. So we have to keep going in the story where we come to Jesus in the New Testament. And in the Gospel of John, we hear this claim that God became human in Jesus and made his dwelling among us. Now, this word dwelling is really curious. It means he set up a tabernacle among us. And so what John is claiming right here is that Jesus is a temple. He is now the place where heaven and earth overlap.
What's interesting about Jesus is that he isn't staying in this safe, clean space. He's running around hanging out with sinners. He's healing people of their sicknesses and forgiving people of their sins.
He's basically creating little pockets of heaven where people can be in God's presence, but he's doing it out there in the middle of the world of sin and death.
And he keeps telling everyone that the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
And he even told his followers to pray regularly that God's kingdom come and that his will be done here on earth just as it is in heaven.
But a lot of people are threatened by Jesus and they kill him, which seems to spoil this whole plan to reunite heaven and earth.
But we have to go back to a scene earlier on in Jesus' story where John the Baptist saw Jesus and said, "Behold, this is the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world."
So Jesus isn't just talked about as being a temple, he's also talked about as being the temple sacrifice.
Yeah, so the cross is now the place where Jesus absorbs sin to create a clean space that is not limited like animal sacrifices. Jesus' sacrifice has the power to keep spreading and reuniting more and more of heaven and earth.
And this is all really great, but it leaves one big question in my mind, which is, what happens when I die? Don't I just fly over to God's space to be with Jesus?
Yeah, so a few times in the New Testament, we learn that Christians will be with Jesus in heaven after they die, but that is not the focus of the Bible story. The focus is on how heaven and earth are being reunited through Jesus and will be completely brought together one day when he returns. So in the book of Revelation, we get this beautiful image of the Garden of Eden, now in the form of a city, coming to end the age of sin and death by redeeming all of human history in a renewed creation. And God's space and human space completely overlap once again.
Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. He said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death.
When it says in Revelations there was no longer any sea, my understanding is that the sea stands for separation, problems and evil. And the sea was a frightening place for people at that time, separating lands, and shipwrecks were common. It said, look, God's dwelling place is now among people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. This is a wonderful promise, isn't it? Something that can bring us hope. What more do we want? I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. This reminds us of the greatness of God that we thought about on Monday, and that we can trust him. But cowardliness and unbelief, and that the vile, the murderer, the sexually immoral, and those who practice magic arts, the idolater and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. Now this for me is a difficult part, because I would like everybody to be forgiven. Jesus said on the cross, they don't know what they're doing. Yet this may be something to do with the fact that God is also perfect justice. He does want all men to be saved. His perfect love and perfect justice. So this is something I just have to leave with God. And I just hope that eventually all men and women will be saved. So tomorrow we can look at how we can bring hope to others and make more of those circles in the world.
He sings a song over you, a song of joy and salvation. He sings a song over you, a song of love and devotion.
Did you not know?
He sings a song over you.
Have you not heard?
Were you not told? He sings a song over
you not known?
Did you not know?
Have you not heard?